Ladies and gentlemen, am I allowed to say that the field of classical music, the world of classical music is quite unique? You have today, generally speaking, the performing artists playing music written in the past, primarily 1 to 2 and more centuries ago. That's the focus of today's performance practice. That's in fact the majority of music that is being produced in the classical music world. And on the other hand, you have the audience. And the audience, in fact, develops an emotional bond with music written so long ago through the performing artist. And now there is something else that surrounds this unique ecosystem, which is the notion that when you go to a concert or you listen to a CD or you go on Spotify and you listen to digital streams or whatever, that if you listen to a Chopin etude played by a pianist, or you listen to whatever music performed by whatever performing artist, that there is always something there, whether it is research or whether it is just by tradition or by whatever, that there is always this element of the performing artist intentionally trying to honor the intention of the composer. In other words, the audience expects that what they hear is at least an attempt to come as close to what the composer had in mind. I don't think there is a situation in which pianists or conductors or performing artists go on stage or produce a CD recording and say, hey, I'm 100% sure that what I'm going to play now does not reflect the intention of the composer. Just think about that. That's a very powerful idea to start. Like, just take away this notion of authenticity. Authenticity being, how did Chopin intended his pieces? How did Beethoven wanted his symphonies to be played? Is it like this, or is it like John Eliot Gardner? There is no chance that it would be both, right? And so the audience trusts the performing artist. And on top of that, there is something else. We've created this idea, almost a belief, that in the 19th century, many musicians like Liszt, Beethoven, Chopin, Thalberg, Tausig, Czerny, the person we're going to talk about in this video, that all of these composers / performers were on a level like we are here and they are there. And the crazy thing is that the thing that we're talking about here on this channel so many times, which is metronome marks and their original meaning, how the composers in the past, in the 19th century especially, used the metronome. I'm going to come back on that in this video, that whenever you bring it up in the context of research and like, okay, let's try if we can play those metronome marks, and let's see if Liszt really was here, or maybe he was here and we are here, that in that context, many people, not you, of course, I know that, but in that context that people seem to feel like, okay, but that cannot be true. Because why would you take a metronome mark? It's so dogmatic. It's like unmusical. But the notion that Liszt was here and that Beethoven was here and that Czerny was here and we are only here is actually because of the metronome marks. The metronome marks then read in the modern way. Because if you see, and we're going to check some metronome marks by Carl Czerny in this video, if you look at them, it's like unbelievable. The speeds that they suggest are just like not of this earth. And so when we assume that these people who gave the metronome marks actually could play them, then Liszt was here and Czerny was here and we are just here. And we tried to be there. And the consequence of all of that is pretty devastating. We've made a video recently about 70% of pianists are actually chronically injured. Go check that video out. I will link it here in the description box if I don't forget it. But that's the consequence. We keep pushing, we keep trying, and we keep pretending. And so in classical music, you have also this notion that we have to pretend that, okay, we are on this way to Liszt and we try and we push and we are like the top 1% of performing artists belong to these circles where they have to. The audience expects that. The audience expects when someone plays a complete Chopin etude that it's like an impressive performance. Imagine that performer would go on stage and say like, hey, but I discovered something. These guys were actually correct and Chopin played it like that. That would create a little bit of a disturbance in an audience today because there is an expectation. And so the performing artist is really in a difficult position. I would say even more so when he or she ambitions like a huge career in this field, because then they'll have to pretend a little bit. The cool thing about the internet today is like sometimes you discover, based on the algorithm of YouTube, that there is a behind the scenes of all of that. And so here is a channel. I want to feature that today. We have a pianist, Lars Nielsen. I don't know the guy, but he is actually talking to an audience, building a career as a teacher, and has some interesting things to say. And what we're going to do in this video is I will take you through this video. We're going to discuss it. We're going to see how actually the music of Czerny or the etudes of Czerny are presented. And we're going to see what happens when you look into the study room of someone who's not talking to me or is not talking to the audiences that go to the Concertgebouw Amsterdam or Carnegie Hall or wherever. He's talking to the potential student. And why do I say he's not talking to me? Because when people talk to me through YouTube videos, then suddenly everything is possible. Like there is no problem in playing Czerny etudes with 15 notes a second for pages long. There is no problem. If only I had a fortepiano, or if only. There's always an excuse. And for those performances that do play Czerny a tempo, I mean, you see often like this very shaky hand movements or leg movements where you wonder like, is the camera actually of such a low quality that like everything is like feeling like a little bit unnatural, or is this video just sped up 10, 15 or 20%? It's so easy to do. So this is an important video because you're going to see that when you doubt that Czerny is possible in that tempo, in single beat, you're going to get a confirmation. And so for those of you who wonder what I'm talking about, again, very short, guys. Majority of you know what the WBMP is, the whole beat metronome practice, but I get new viewers on my channel, so I'm thankful for that. By the way, if you're new here, like and subscribe this video. We are building a way to 100,000 subscribers, which is a huge stretch for a channel that's just focusing on reconstructing music of the past and actually does something called fact-checking. But my ambition is to go to 100,000. So if you could help us doing that, that would be great. So subscribing to the channel is really something that I would be very grateful for. So whole beat practice versus single beat practice. A single beat practice is a modern practice. You see here a metronome mark. Just take 30 seconds, guys. You have a metronome here. I let it swing. And in modern reading, you would connect one half note, obviously, to one tick of this metronome, which would be very fast. Tak, tak, so every 2 ticks, I would have a bar. Good luck with that. Whole beat is just that you consider the metronome to be a mechanical pendulum. And you say 1 and 2, and every half note is actually defined by 2 ticks. 1 and 2 and still pretty fast. Just try it. Czerny and whole beat, not for everyone. But again, that's not the point of this video, but now you know what we're talking about. So let's listen first to the line of connection that Lars has with Carl Czerny. You know what I think about tradition. He's not making the point that because there is a line to his teachers that goes back to Czerny, that he's playing like Czerny, but it's cool to hear him say that.
There, to me, with Czerny, Beethoven was teaching Czerny, Czerny was teaching Liszt, Liszt was teaching Tausig, Tausig was Liszt's most virtuosical student. He died a little bit young. You could see him as the Horowitz of the 19th century. He was a real great pianist. And he was also the teacher of Bach, and Bach was the teacher of Arthur Rubinstein. And Arthur Rubinstein was teaching my teacher, Avi Schoenfeld. So, I see there a nice link to me.
Okay, but now we move on to one place where like Lars starts to talk about all kinds of Czerny etudes and bundles. Here's the Opus 139. We're going to end with the Czerny Opus 299, which is a Schule der Geläufigkeit, a School of Velocity, where Lars will be playing a complete piece fast. So we'll see what result is there. But now a demonstration of a C major etude, which doesn't have any metronome marks, but let's see about the tempo that spontaneously is actually taken if you think about the target group of students that this music or these etudes are composed for.
Studies They start very easy, like here, for example.
So Lars is playing this etude, which is an allegro with 16th notes, as you can see here. So nothing out of the ordinary. He's taking a tempo of quarter note 66 in single beat, so modern reading. So every quarter note here aligns with the tick of the metronome put in 66. Now, I could go to the Opus 299 here and just check, like this is a presto, of course, but you have molto allegro here, 104. It's not so much difference. And okay, an allegro is slower, but quarter note 66 compared to half note 104 is already a lot. But I could also go to, for instance, Burgmüller in one of his opuses, Opus 100. So 25 easy etudes. So you have here a moderato, which is a little slower, I would say, compared to an allegro, but 16th notes, quite similar structure. The Czerny etude was a little bit more complex with scales in the left hand, but you see a tempo of quarter note 112. So Lars is playing the etude that is demonstrating in a tempo almost half of that of Burgmüller. I'm just saying, like this, these things will, once you pay attention, you will start to see more and more of these things that do not make any sense. Why is a moderato in this piece being a little bit of the same structure, like almost double the tempo compared to an allegro? There are no metronome marks, but the tempo that he takes. Now, he does something interesting. He's going to speed this up to a faster tempo as also being a possibility. So now we are in a tempo of quarter note 96. Quarter note 96. If you listen to this, and of course you are Lang listening to this video, by the way, I'm honored to have you here, Mr. Lang. I would love to talk to you about all of this because it's pretty interesting. It can potentially actually change the scope of the classical music in a way that is like beyond even thinkable. Imagine that. Every piece we touch upon is again a premiere. You go to Beethoven Piano Concerto, premiere. You go to a Brahms Symphony, a premiere. You go to Tchaikovsky's 1812 Overture, it's a premiere. Everything is a premiere. And at the same time, we can keep doing what we are doing because we will now know that what you hear is just like in the mainstream performance, or even if the hip wants to continue like this, it's just an evolved performance practice. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just a notion that if you want to hear music of the past played in a way that was supposedly intended by the composer, and by the way, we only constructing tempi, there is a lot more that comes with that. That's cool, right? We would have two main performance practices, and I think the audience would love it. But just to say, if you go to 96 here, quarter note, then you arrive in a tempo that is very close to half of this. So the sped up version of this etude, it's not sped up, it's just played faster. There's a faster version of this etude. If you do not think about anything remotely connected to metronome marks or metronome research or whatever, or like the notion that people are watching you to see if you can do it, if you can play so fast. No, just openly. And I really support that. I mean, this is a great video, in fact, that we're watching. Then you are coming in a tempo of 96. And you could say that easily Lars could push it a little further, but you are around this. So you could say he's playing it in an almost molto allegro. But listening to him play that makes you also realize this is possible for a lot of people. And this is possible maybe not for someone who starts in the first year in that tempo, but it's possible for someone in the fourth year if he's a good student. In fact, that's what Carl Czerny is writing about in the preface, that if you study these etudes, the Opus 299, which we are going to focus on in a second, if you focus on, if you study those and you learn everything slowly, that you can, then the good students will come in the, what he calls a very fast tempi that he has set for his etudes. And now many people will say like, Wim, very fast tempo. But when you hear Lars playing in 96, okay, we go a little faster and we arrive at 104. That's not very fast. No, it's not fast in our understanding. It was fast in their understanding. When they went on the train, they didn't expect to have a speed of of 180 kilometers an hour. They were happy with 27 kilometers an hour. And even in Beethoven's time, at the time that Czerny wrote his etude, the trains were barely there. But they were describing that speed of 27 kilometers an hour, which is 19 miles an hour, as to be like, if you read those descriptions, then you think they were in a space shuttle. So the notion that for Carl Czerny very fast would be exactly the same as for us very fast, I don't buy that. It's not something where you can build your theory upon, I would say, to reconstruct metronome marks. And by the way, then play it in that tempo that Czerny deems to be very normal, like doable for the good students with an S. So there must have been quite some people in his practice as a teacher that simply could do it. Why otherwise would he give these metronome marks? Okay, so now with this out of the way, there is another demonstration which is also very cool, because we will see Lars demonstrating another piece in, again, exactly the same tempo of quarter notes 66. It's not yet the Opus 299, that will come.
You can do them. See, for example, this first one.
So if you are teaching in music school and your student 3rd year, 4th year is playing an etude of Czerny like that, you're doing a good job. 66 quarter note, like 66 quarter note. You see these metronome marks where they come in. And what I hate about current practice, also the way we see metronome marks of the past. Of course, nobody is saying like, yeah, you have to play in metronome marks. But again, they are pushing us. Like, how many teachers on this planet actually push their students when they would be able to play that etude like that? Like, now we go a little faster, and now we go a little faster. And they push their students to be at their limit, and in many cases over their limit. And the only reason they're doing that is because of this. That's the only reason. And when we talk about metronome marks, yeah, but you cannot reach those. By the way, ask your teacher to demonstrate that, and then go and download the preface of Carl Czerny of this book. It's on IMSLP, and let him or her read that. He should be able to do that easily. Then suddenly these metronome marks do not make any sense anymore. And then suddenly the metronome marks, why would you play them in the metronome mark? But the metronome marks are there always at the background. Okay, now we move on to the Opus 299, and we get a first demonstration here of the first 2 etudes, just a few bars, and that's already very interesting. We're going to focus on number 5, which Lars is playing completely in the fast tempo. So here is number 1 and number 2.
Opus 299, the School of Velocity, Schule der Gläufigkeit.
Okay, so number 1 and number 2, we all know these pieces, right? You've noticed already here that when you have the bottom of the scale, this is of course very tricky. It is one of those, spots already at the beginning, the first etude, where it's very hard in a fast tempo to go from here till here in the right time. And so you hear that in his performance as well, that there is a little bit more time here, because you need to travel 2 octaves. And so this is already a huge tempo indicator that this tempo was not meant by Czerny. But there is a metronome mark here, 108, and Lars is not playing in 108, but he's playing, be prepared for a shock, he's playing in 72. Both. So no, the second one is even slower. So the second one he plays like in around 69. So it's a little bit slower, but you can hear the difference. Of course, the bottom of the piano is a little bit harder, and you have 2 hands and things like that. So 72 is about 35% below this tempo. That's a lot. That's really a lot. But that's not all. Now we go to the number 5, in which we get a demonstration of the entire piece. We're going to listen to that, but I will interrupt the performance a few times for reasons that I will explain then. So we get a demonstration of that piece here, me playing a complete etude in fast tempo. So that's by no stretch of the imagination slow. And so that's part of my point. You have here a guy just talking to his audience, potential students for the classes that he offers. And he gives a demonstration, not talking to me, not talking like to a crowd of people that potentially would hire him to go on stage. He doesn't care. He's playing this Czerny etude in a tempo that he considers to be a fast tempo. And it's important. Now, I can imagine some people jumping to the comment boxes right now, and this comment box in particular, and say like, yeah, but Wim, it's not because he says that it is fast, that it is fast, because that's not fast according to me. That's not my point. My point is when someone is talking about all of this stuff, you know, not talking to me, not wanting to impress, not wanting to give the impression like I can reach that if only I knew, if only I had like a fortepiano or whatever. Well, then suddenly, very fast is way below tempo. And so you will hear this etude played in an average of 72, where Czerny marks this piece also to be like in 104 or in 108. Let's scroll down and then we will discover it together. It's 108. So it's this one. It's a very interesting piece, also because you'll have passages with two hands together, which is not easy here, also not in whole beat, and certainly not on the fortepiano. I've recorded these pieces.
Later on they can be difficult if you play them really fast.
For instance here, just go back a little bit. Just notice we have 76s at the beginning, and now we slow down. Why? Because that's the part of the exercise of Czerny. You have 5-4, 5-4. That's exercising like these two ugly fingers of your hand. And in 72, it's already very hard. You can say like, okay, but this is on a heavy piano. That's like, okay, I get all of that. Then, I mean, whatever. It won't make your life easier on the fortepiano because you don't have even a double escapement, which would be extremely helpful to just leave your fingers a little bit on the key on those moments. But anyways, we continue. Just a passage again, so you can feel actually slowing down of last year. You've also seen like there is a little fatigue in the hand. Of course, you get tension in this tempo already. Imagine we're 35% below so-called tempo, the single beat tempo. And of course, when you have 5-4, 5-4 in this tempo even, then you have to recover from that. And so that was what's happening when you go back in the right hand, just scaling. I don't know if it was a cut or not. It doesn't matter. I don't want to judge this player, but you're already like on the edge, but there's more. Okay, so now we have the scales in the left hand. So we arrive here. And so what is difficult here is you have to make the jumps. Now, in the right hand jumps are in a way easier. The targets are easier. I don't know why, but here also the sound production may be a little bit more difficult in that tempo. So now suddenly the pedal is arriving here. And the pedal is helping actually to maintain the speed and have development of sound. And so that's one of the things that's really important. If we have discussions about the use of pedal, one of the reasons that modern pianists also inhibit, because they do exactly the same as mainstream pianists on the Steinway, they have actually, the fortepiano players have an easier time because depressing the pedal there has a little bit less of an effect, so they can do it more, and they actually do it in many instances more. But you need the pedal in order to make those speeds happen. And again, 35% below tempo in single beat. Without the pedal, you would need to work more on the quality of the individual notes, which of course is also easier when you go up to the treble, because you need much less input into the key in order to make the piano sound. Here it's more difficult. The hammers are heavier. By the way, it's also true on the pianoforte. The pianoforte plays heavier here. So that's the reason why we now hear suddenly the pedal kicking in. So and there was a little glitch here, a little mistake. But again, I don't judge him. I'm just, it's a beautiful performance here because you can actually see what's happening. Here, that mistake. Why did it happen? It's not because Lars cannot play, because his arm is completely frozen now after all these scales. Even with the use of the pedal, a little bit, he's just touching it, but it will become worse when we have the both hands together here. But there is, of course, this tension in your arm and here, and you can already see it. When we go back a little bit, you will see that his left hand is freezing. And of course, when Lang Lang would play that, and by the way, I featured Lang Lang in the Opus 299 #1. He even made a CD recording of Deutsche Grammophon. He's playing 88. So Lars doesn't need to feel ashamed. Lang Lang, the great concert pianist, who also suffered from vocal dystonia, by the way. Can I say that? He's playing 88 on his recording. And when he demonstrates it on the video for Deutsche Grammophon, he has to stop in the middle. And it's not deliberately. He just played it a little faster, at the kind 92-ish. Yes, that's faster than 72. But he didn't manage to play the first etude, which was designed by Czerny for beginners. Just saying. I'm not criticizing Lars here. It's just what happens to a normal professional player who doesn't want to show off, who doesn't want to hide, but whose clearly intention is here to demonstrate this etude very fast. And look at his left hand. Okay, and then comes the right hand again, much easier, but then we go to the passages where we have the two lines together, and this is not easy. You have to jump here an octave, and you have to jump here. Let me correct my image here very briefly, and you have to jump here more than an octave. These notes are very hard to. I mean, that's of course Carl Czerny. That's why he's so good. He is extremely well informed. I mean, the guy was teaching for over 40 years. He was teaching 12 hours a day, so he knew what was working and what was not working. And so this is very, 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 very hard. So let's listen how Lars is playing this. Okay, so I'm going to show you that the bridge passage again. I clicked a little bit too early, but the point is here, there is no rhythm anymore. It's just like scales, like floating out of the fingers, and then go back, and then there comes this moment again that I just clicked a little bit early to make you witness that, where you have to readjust, and there's basically no rhythm, so you have to find your beat again, and then see, of course, where the pedal kicks in. This passage without a pedal, no way. So let's go back a few seconds and then continue. Again, I'm not belittling Lars here. I'm just showing to you, whenever you read people, it's all possible, it's easy. If I would be a pianist, I would be demonstrating that, and you have so many recordings on the internet that just prove it. Yeah, behind like a score. I mean, I can speed this video up without you seeing it. You could see it probably on a video, as you can see oftentimes in videos that it's sped up. I just wonder why people are so like you have channels of literally where you can see the jumps of the hand, like suddenly the hand disappears out of the screen. That's not possible with a camera. I mean, unless you have a camera of like built in 1905, but it should be fast enough to capture movements of a hand. But if you speed up, of course, you're skipping some frames, and then you go into this comment box and you're, oh, it's great virtuosity. Also that kind of video nonsense, I would say, is pushing people further and further and further. This, what you see here right now in front of our eyes, that's very high level. I wouldn't say long level. Probably Lux doesn't have 10 hours a day to study. Probably Lux doesn't have focal dystonia either. But this is absolutely normal. This is why this thing here should be reconsidered. Again, remember, Carl Czerny says you have to play these pieces in the tempo. The best students can play it if they study a little bit. Yeah. I forgive this this cut. It was not very beautifully done because it's very difficult, this line. I mean, you have to, on the wide keys, just accept that your fingers know where to go. This is very hard. But then the end, just see how the pieces ended. Suddenly we are in whole beat. Like, I mean, there are, once you are, if you have the line here, like at one hand, one side, people would say like, yeah, but metronome marks are always like in modern time, like modern single beat. And no matter what, it's like, yeah, okay, then you shut your eyes like this, you don't see anything. But if you say on this side, like your whole beat was a practice, and then you see people struggle here to play in a tempo 35% below Carl Czerny, then you see like hundreds of these passages, of course. That's like, again, I'm not saying that this is a bad performance, it's just you need to compromise. Let's liberate our friend Lars from this Czerny experience, and of course, especially from me ranting about his video. Again, nothing that I want to say is playing, like this video is great, and it's like showing, it's a slice out of the life of a normal professional pianist who is using Carl Czerny for his students, and they should. The only thing that I'm worrying about, also in this case, is that the tempo that we hear is already for Lars too fast, and probably that's the tempo that he will set for his students as the end goal, which for many amateurs will be way too high. By the way, this tempo is 144 on average quarter notes. That's the tempo of the Hammerklavier sonatas fugue. So to see, that's like, guys, in the 19th century, you have a lot of metronome marks. Many people think like all these tempi were like all over the place, and every composer had like, you cannot compare an allegro from Beethoven with Chopin, with Tchaikovsky. Yes, you can. There was kind of awareness of what a normal allegro sounded like or felt like. This, of course, not black and white. There's nothing written in stone. It's not like one tempo for an allegro. You have a range, but within this range, it's not like this. The ranges were like pretty narrow. You can come down to a 19th century tempo overview. In fact, I'm finishing the course, the notation course. I've been talking about that quite a lot. And by the time you watch this video, probably it is already launched, especially for the people who bought the full Beethoven experience. our recording of the symphonies, by the way, in whole beat, all 10 of them. And I will connect that to 75 video course. And no worries, it only takes you 1 hour to get started. There is an 8-hour trajectory journey, so to say. And you can also come back to that like months. There are 75 videos going through all the movements and like deciphering the notation, connecting that to the metronome mark, Beethoven's metronome mark. And by reading it in whole beat, we can now play it and listen to the result without saying like, yeah, I'm off like 20% or whatever. No excuses anymore. And what happens then is then you come to a kind of framework that you can use from music, basically from Bach to Rachmaninoff almost. Like this guy was in the center of everything, was very heavily influenced by what was before him. And he, of course, projected like an entire century. So then you see that in the 19th century, these composers, these musicians, yeah, they played faster and faster because the audience demanded that. But in their study rooms, they still had this old notion of what an allegro had to be. Like a Carl Czerny allegro moderato, allegro or allegro molto doesn't differ from a Beethoven allegro molto or a Tchaikovsky allegro molto. It's all the same. And of course, Czerny marks presto and allegro molto because he wants to go at the edge, but he didn't go over the edge, and not even, certainly not in a ridiculous way. Like, okay, I could sped this performance up. I don't. I have showed you in the past enough what Czerny sounds like in single beat. This video, guys, was just to show to you that the discussion on internet sometimes, and of course you hear, I mean, if you're still here in the video, again, leave it in the comment. I will give it a heart. I appreciate you being here and listening to my rants. I planned again to make a short video, but it's not possible because there are so many topics to be covered to contextualize everything. And I don't want to say that on the internet you only, but go and just type my name. Thanks to the algorithms, not my videos pop up, but like people saying like Wim Winters is a flat earth or whatever. And I don't take it too seriously because none of these people have the knowledge to really talk about what they pretend to be able to talk about. I don't blame them, but it's like this general notion. I wonder if I would talk to Lars Nielsen here and say, okay, do we agree that there is some problem? I would love to reach, I mean, Lars, if you're watching, leave me an email and I will get back to you. I would love to talk. I'm talking to professional musicians more than actually people would know. But the point is, like, where do we want to take our audience in? Coming back to the beginning, like the performing artist, you are there. Whether you are a teacher, whether you are a performing artist, you have this responsibility. You are in the driver's seat, so to say, in classical music. You decide what your audience is going to think about the intention of the composer, and that's a huge responsibility. And metronome marks read in this modern way in single beat, I've demonstrated that what it means. They make absolutely no sense. And so are we going to pretend? Are we going to continue pretending that we want to go there and that we just can do it? Or even keep silent about that? Even musicians demonstrating how the Hammerklavier Sonata in reality sounds. If you just play it in tempo and then demonstrating it 20% slower, with no one fact-checking. And to be honest, when I made a video about Henley Edition, like asking the right questions, they have a megaphone. Compared to my microphone, this microphone is just sounding here in this room. And to you, a few thousands of people. But Henley reaches like hundreds of thousands of people. And so I would need that megaphone. We would have to line up with all these megaphones to shout to the people like, hey, this is the Beethoven. There's no other solution. It can be that you don't like it. Listen to it 3 times though. It's on Bandcamp for free. Link in the description box. You can listen to it 3 times. You will be converted. There is a musical universe that's opening for you that you don't want to leave anymore. All these layers of rhythms that you've never heard, that are there in Beethoven's score, but like just get covered under this mud of ultra speed. And even that is too slow, according to modern reading of the metronome mark. Now you get this timeline of Beethoven reconstructed. And guys, this is just amazing. That's just amazing. So the point of this video, again, to summarize, was like, this is what happens. What you've just seen when you're just talking internally to students, not mentioning anything of tempo research, then suddenly Czerny is like here already, where in our modern opinion it should be here. And we think it should be here. That's all. Before we leave, a shout out to my Patreons. And if you enjoy these videos, consider to become a Patreon. That keeps me going, the research going, the projects going, and also allows me to record this video for you on a Monday afternoon. How cool is that? Thank you for doing that. Thank you for checking it out. Thank you for becoming a member eventually of our community. And as I said, that's all I've got for you today. Thank you for watching. We see each other very soon again. Bye.